What's up, Church Online? It's Pastor Muta. Hey, I'm so glad that you're back with us for part 2, session 2 of our relationships conference called Pillow Talk. I got my good friends Oliver and Denise. Last week was so good, and today is going to be just as good, even greater, because we're talking to the married folk. So today's lesson is all about friends with benefits, and I really want you to lean in, take notes. Again, these are relationship experts who have been doing this for a long time. They've poured into thousands of relationships. So you're getting relationship gold today. All right, guys, lean in. It's going to be a good one.
What's up?
What's up,
we
Relevant
are
Church?
back.
We're back.
What's up, Relevant family? Listen, we are excited to continue in this Pillow Talk series. If you, for some reason, were not in the house, so to speak, for the first installment of this series, make sure that you go and check it out. This time, what are we talking about?
We are talking about friends with benefits.
Man, I got a little warm just hearing that. Man,
gosh.
Friends with benefits. Is that what we're talking about? Friends with benefits. So here's the thing. Let me just say this real quick. I'm going to give a spoiler alert right in the beginning, and then we'll go back and then we'll go through this whole thing.
Okay.
The conversations that we mentioned in the first installment are all the same conversations that should be happening in this installment.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, we're going to touch on some other things, but just know that, right? Know that you don't stop having those kinds of conversations.
Right. You have to keep having them.
In the first installment as in the second installment, right?
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they're probably even more crucial in this installment. Would you say? That's to be debated.
Yeah, that's to be debated. I think that as far as crucial goes, I think the playing field is even because they're crucial in both instances for different reasons.
There it is. See, this is why I keep her around, folks. That's why that I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. So friends with benefits. So I looked this up because I wanted to get
the phrase friends with benefits?
Yeah, I want to get a definition. And I think we should play around with these two definitions.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
They kind of land on two ends of the spectrum. So on one end of the spectrum, we have friends with benefits, meaning two people or friends, if you will, that know each other and engage in intimate or sexual activity without really dating or being in a committed relationship or being committed to each other. That's one end of the spectrum.
Sounds familiar.
It does. The other end of the spectrum is two friends who trust each other enough to engage in sexual activity without fear of hurting the other's feelings. Okay, so we're not going to leave anybody out. So if you happen to be on the first end of the spectrum, no judgment.
No judgment.
If you happen to be on the second end of the spectrum,
Also
no judgment. Now, the conversations may be a little bit different in each of those ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And what the danger, so again, no judgment, but we're honest with folks. So if we're being honest, the danger of the first one, and if you don't remember what we said, the first one was friends or two people who know each other who engage in intimate or sexual activity without really dating or really being committed. The danger in being on that end of the spectrum is that some of these conversations, because we're talking about pillow talk, some of these conversations don't take place.
They do not. They absolutely do not take place.
Because if you're like me, because I've been on both ends of the spectrum, let's be clear. If you're like me, on this first end of the spectrum, I was not thinking about having conversations about boundaries.
Right.
Because there weren't really any boundaries. If I'm just, there were very little for me.
They were loose.
They were loose. They were loose. They were flexible. They were flexible. I wasn't thinking about some of these conversations. And so that's the danger So no judgment, but that's something you got to think about.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? You may find yourself in a situation when you're on that end of the spectrum where you're like, man, I really wish I knew that ahead of time.
Right. Yep.
So those conversations are important. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, because we're talking to married folk primarily, right? This week.
Yeah.
I'd love the definition on the other end of the spectrum. 2 friends who trust each other enough to engage in sexual activity without fear of hurting the other's feelings. In order for you to trust me, I have to actually be talking to you about something.
Right, because then why would I need to trust you
Right.
if we're not having conversations?
Our pillow talk has to be phenomenal in order for us to be on that end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
2 friends who trust each other enough to engage in sexual activity without fear of hurting the other's feelings.
Yeah.
So what do those pillow talk conversations look like?
I think in order for me to trust you, or in order for us to trust each other, we need to know each other's love languages.
That's
Or
good.
love language, if it's just one.
That's good. And shout out to the person in the comments last week who mentioned love languages. And
Yeah.
I was like, man, they're already in our next week's thing, right? Because we were going to mention that. And so I do believe that there are conversations, you're right, that should be happening around your love language. And here's the thing. We'll give you 2 umbrella type conversations, right? So there are conversations that fit under this umbrella. And they're conversations that help you learn your mate. It is so crucial that you are intentional about having conversations that give you the opportunity to learn something about each other.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny because we were just telling somebody the other day, we've been married for 22 years and we're still learning.
Still learning.
Still learning. And you have to have those conversations. So that's one umbrella. And I think the love languages falls under that umbrella.
Right.
The other umbrella is conversations that actually help you to discover your most important emotional needs.
Yep. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
That's a good one. Now, we can attest to the fact that having that kind of conversation was a game changer.
Yes, it was.
For us.
It kind of, when we started doing that, learning each other's love languages, yes. But I think for us in particular, learning each other's most important emotional needs, it was a game changer, because I think the both of us felt like, okay, this is someone that is really into me, wants to know me, wants to learn me. And because of that, I want to reciprocate and do the same thing.
Right. And to be on that end of the spectrum, 2 friends who trust each other to engage in sexual activity without fear of hurting the other's feelings. Let me just tell you, if you don't already know, that when you really take the time to learn each other, and you really take the time to understand the needs and answer these questions. Here's some questions that you can answer to understand the needs. What is the need?
What is the need?
Number 1, why is the need important? Number 2, how does the need benefit this team, these 2 friends? How does the need benefit our union?
Yeah.
And what can the other person do to help facilitate that need?
Right.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. We talking about friends with benefits. The benefits are nice. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. When you're having these kinds of conversations that get you to the point where you are trusting each other, the benefits are nice and they flow, no pun intended, and they are too much. A little bit too much. All right. I think. Listen, man. Relevant can hang with me. They with
right.
me.
You're right. You're right. This is a church that I love, because we keep they keep things relevant.
Listen,
you're right.
Listen,
you're right.
It's sweet, man. The benefits are sweet. So make sure, in addition to the conversations that we talked about last week, that you. The conversations about benefits. See, you got benefits in my head now. The conversations about boundaries, about expectations. And all of the other things that we talked about last week, you should be having conversations that actually endear you to the other person,
right?
And allow you to learn the other person.
And here's why it's important to keep having those kinds of conversations that we talked about last week, because as you grow in your relationship, in your marriage, things change. I change, you change, we evolve. And so we need to continue to keep learning because we never completely know our spouses, because our relationship changes. The things we used to like, we may not like anymore. The things we didn't like, we may want to incorporate now. All of those kinds of things. So we have to keep learning our spouse.
Yeah, very, very true. So make sure that you're having conversations that are that help you to learn.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of ways to do that, right? There's some games out right now that we love, that are conversation starters. These dating games or games for married couples that you pull this question out and have this engaging conversation around it.
Yeah.
You get to learn your spouse. The other thing is, and you talked about the love languages, that falls under there.
Yeah.
The reason why it's important to know the love language is because you need to know how your spouse receives love.
Right. Absolutely.
So last week we talked about communication as well, right? You need to know how your spouse likes to be communicated to.
Right.
That's a conversation that you need to have.
Yeah.
Right. We had an issue, right, where we're just butting heads about things until we actually were like, okay, well, what is it that gets you the way you are?
Right.
Like, why do you receive it that way? I'm
Yeah.
never trying to give it that way. Why do you receive it that way?
Yeah.
And I remember you talking about some of the words that I use and how I communicate to you. And that if these tweaks were made, it would be received differently.
Right.
So you got to have those kinds of conversations, because what you're trying to do is be two friends who trust each other enough to engage in sexual activity without fear of hurting the other's feelings.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the benefits. That's what I really just ran through all of that so I could get to the benefits, right?
Yeah,
so,
you were talking kind of fast.
Yeah, I was, because we got to be friends. So we got to establish the friendship with
Yeah.
these kinds of conversations. Let's get to the benefits. We need to be having conversations about benefits.
We sure do. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have conversations around sex.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have assumptions. They have internal expectations that are never articulated.
Right.
And then when something doesn't happen, somebody doesn't do something the way they like it, or somebody isn't, whatever happens, right?
Yeah.
These things kind of create friction for us.
They do. No pun intended.
No pun intended. Because friction
Sorry.
is good and benefits.
Yes, it is.
Let's
Sorry.
be clear.
Sorry, I had
All
to
right.
put that out
All
there.
right. Back to regularly
Yeah,
scheduled
rewind.
program. All right, here we go.
What was I saying?
See?
I was gonna say, so if we don't have these conversations about sexual intimacy, right? We start having sex and maybe you're doing something that I don't like. If I never communicate that to you, number one, I'm gonna start to feel like, oh, I'm not being fulfilled. And number two, you're gonna be like, what is it? Like, she doesn't like it. She doesn't like it. What am I doing wrong? And if neither one of us talk about it, you're gonna be resentful.
Yep.
I'm going to be resentful when all we have to do is have a conversation.
That's right.
Because the goal is for you to meet my needs and for me to meet your needs. And once we're both doing that, then it's on and popping.
It's on and popping. And so I know I joked about rushing to the benefits thing, but let me say this just to really drive this point home. You can't rush through that other process in real life.
Right.
Or you should not rush through that other process, because establishing that base, that friendship, those friends who trust each other enough, that is crucial to your benefit package being fantastic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's if you're not, so think about benefits as it relates to your job, right? If you're not paying into the benefits,
Right.
then once you try to use them, you're going to be stuck.
Nothing there.
Right.
Yeah.
So you should be really focusing on establishing that friendship and those friends who trust each other.
Yeah.
We often say this, that sex is like the roof of the house. If you want to liken it to a home, sex is like the roof of the house. I'm not a contractor, so all the contractors who might be watching, you may be able to correct me on this, but I've never seen a house built from the roof down. So there's a foundation that's laid first. And so part of that foundation are these kinds of conversations that help you learn your mate,
Yeah.
that help you learn their love language, how they like to be communicated to, and what their most important emotional needs are. And then the benefits are a direct and very beautiful result of that.
Yeah.
But you should also not leave that to chance.
Correct. Right.
We're proponents of not leaving anything to chance. So you need to know what kind of benefits your mate appreciates.
Right.
Right? I'm not trying to give you dental if you don't want that. All right. I'm gonna be good.
Do with that with
yeah.
what
I'm gonna
you
be good.
would
Take
do
that.
with that
Take
what
that
you
however
made.
you wanted
Yeah.
to take it. Yeah. I'm coming back. I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be good.
Oh my goodness.
So listen, in closing, because I really want to tie this into a piece of the text that governs our time together, and the thing that jumped out to me was in chapter 5 was verse 16.
Ephesians
Chapter 5, verse 16. Make the most of every opportunity in these evil days.
Yeah.
So if you go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you're friends with benefits and you're friends that trust each other enough, you can't let stuff get in the way that will cause you to miss out on opportunities.
Yeah. And the reason why it says in these evil days is just because of that, because you can't let stuff get away like the enemy would like us to.
Exactly.
Those are the evil days, because the enemy wants us to think, oh, I'm not going to talk about that. Oh, we're just going to let that slide. I'll just not say anything. That's exactly what the enemy wants us to do, because one small edge of a wedge is the only thing that the enemy needs to get between the two of us. Not talking about these things that seem insignificant, seem like they're not going to make a difference. That's what's going to cause the wedge to make us be more separated and just drive us further and further apart. So I like where it says make the most of every opportunity in these evil days. That's why it says in these evil days.
Yeah. Make the most of every opportunity. So as you're looking to really just engage in great pillow talk, be sure that you are having conversations that allow you to learn your mate.
Yeah.
You want to know this person that you are developing this friendship with, and you want to know them in a way that allows you to trust them and allows them to trust you, so that you can be friends who trust each other enough to engage in sexual activity without fear of hurting the other's feelings, because you know them, they know you, they trust you. You're communicating by having these conversations, these pillow talk conversations, and you are talking about the benefits. You're talking about everything, right? And then listen, I'll go a step further, because remember in the first one, I said that when I think pillow talk, I think the conversations that happen after sex. So some of these conversations need to be like, man, you did that, babe.
Yeah. Seriously.
You need to celebrate. So some of those conversations need to be about celebration.
Celebratory.
Celebratory conversations. And not just in the bedroom.
Right.
Your mate does something that you appreciate, talk about it. Have that conversation. Man, I love you so much. I love when you do this. You're really paying attention to me. You're listening to me. I feel like you see me.
Yeah.
Have those kinds of conversations, right?
That'll get you in the bedroom too.
Listen, man, because we trying to be friends with all kinds of benefits. We want the benefit package to be large. Listen, family, start talking. Have the conversations. Jesus is relevant.
Jesus is relevant.
And because he's relevant, he wants you as friends to enjoy the benefits
that he's blessed us with.
Yeah. And in closing, back to the text. Make the most of every opportunity to do this. Blessings on you, relevant family. We'll see you soon.
God bless. Bye.